Hi guys, it's Blakey and it's another Thursday night live. Hope y'all are doing okay. Uh, well, it's warmed up quite a bit down here in the south. It hit 80 today, and it's 7 o'clock at night, and it's 70 degrees out there. So I'm thinking about uncovering the air conditioner and turning the air on. It's getting a little stuffy. 2020, good evening. Hiram, good evening. John Kennedy, how you doing, sir? Craig, yep, 40s there in New York. Yeah, y'all, all the moisture that's flowing out of here like a river, all that cold's hitting, it's going to turn into an ice storm up there in the Midwest and all. So, hope y'all going to do okay. James Singer, good evening. Buckeye, good evening. Oh, Hiram, yeah, I'm starting to make prep too for the spring gathering. Benjamin, good evening. Gearboy Forge, good evening. Jeff, hello to Newfoundland, Canada. Okay, Gray Wolf, you keep doing dishes. Terry, good evening. Clement 37, hello to Alabaster, Alabama. Briar Smoke, Blackie, how you feeling these days? Good and bad. Good and bad days. I mean, the best the doc tells me is it's rewiring. You know, I feel normal, but I'll have times there where I'll get jittery or whatever, and I'm dealing with it day by day. And what the doc says, he thinks I'm just, the body's trying to reprogram, rework around that damage. And so there's some days that are really good and easy, and some days ain't. So we just take it day by day. That's all we can do. Benjamin, hello, 79 in Texas. I hear you. Mopar, good evening. Edge 13, yep, I'm looking forward to April myself. Mike Simmons, good evening, brother. Susan M, hello. Richard, hello. Mr. Johnny, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Oh, cool, John. You gonna want it to be cold for the for your wood stove? Yeah, be nice. Charles Martin, doing pretty good, thank you. Jerry Diehard, hello there. Glad. Thanks for coming in. Archangel, Blackie, I'm in Vegas. Do you have any knowledge about high desert? Just a superficial knowledge. I know that the higher elevations in Arizona get a lot of rain. They got forests and stuff up there. They can get a lot of rain up there, but the lowlands is all dry, bone dry desert. So, and water don't go far out there. It doesn't flow very far because it just soaks into the ground and it's gone. So other than that, it's about the limit of my knowledge. Now, I've been out in the desert before. I've been out in West Texas and places like that, but I have not got any real in-depth knowledge out there. Deanna and David to Little Rock, Arkansas. Hello there. Thanks for dropping in. Fishing Golf, good evening to Illinois. Anarchy Television, hello there. Prepared for, hello. Yeah, Hiram, if you sips of shine will help rewire or discombobulate a lot of things. Tennessee Smoky, good evening. Oh yeah, Jeff, it negative 26 last night. You up in the high country. Rhett McCory, hello there. Zombie Nation, hello to Illinois. Bears in the house. Good evening, brother. Jeff Conley, hello. Yeah, correct. Hiram. Cody Lundeen is the expert of deserts. He has a lot of experience in that place, how to find water and all like that. Yeah. Turtle D, good evening. Justin, good evening, brother. Yeah, Tennessee Smoky. Boy, they are shaking things up, ain't they? You know. I got a big box of popcorn. I've been waiting. I've been saving just for this. So, 2020, -7 there today. If Blakey had any talks with Greg out at HangCon, I talked to so many people. I don't know right off the top of my head who Greg would be, Jerry. I talked to a lot of people while I was there. Randy, hello there. Fishing Golf 2, good evening. Mike B, good evening. Patriot Preacher 43, good evening. James Singer, hello there. Tim Pierce, hello there. Wow, yeah, I'm seeing where Texas is supposed to be on. Well, they were showing that Mexico City was going to break 100 this week. Now, this is the heat that's supposed to be on the other side of the equator where they've got summer, but it's actually drifted across the equator. So we're getting the summer heat from the other side of the equator, making it all the way up into mid-Mexico. So it's like you just took their column and did that. One wonders if the cold is like all the way down in the Philippines on the far side or something, because you got to have an equal and opposite reaction. Turtle D, oh yeah, bacon grease and popcorn go back a long way. I think I was in school the first time I ever saw a Jiffy Pop. We always Granny would take the bacon drippings, pour, get them good and hot, pour the popcorn in, slap the lid on it, and let it go to ricochet around. Now, excuse me. And to do popcorn, it always had bacon in it when I was young. Dance was empty. Good evening. Andy Knight, hello to South Georgia. Steve Grumpy, 1943. Cool. Place a nombre. Good evening. Charles Martin, Blackie, are there like utensils that will fit inside of a Boy Scout mess kit? Yes, they did actually make, but they're small. They're like that. The kit you see that goes in the little leather thing was a set of utensils. However, they were only about like 4 inches long, 3.5, 4 inches long. They're really meant for a kid. I mean, I had a nice leather set and everything, and it just, yeah, you can use it, but you feel like you're eating out of a baby's play set or something, like a baby spoon. And so, yes, they did make utensils. Most of the time they had the long, full-size utensils that went in a separate thing. They'd slide down the side of it. Jerry, I hear you. Yeah, dance was empty. Here we are at in February is historically the coldest month of the year in Alabama. And we have been in 70s and high 70s and 80s, and the lows may be in the 50s at night, and we've got robins have showed up, grass is turning green, things are budding. It feels like late March, not like February. So that's this vortex of heat's come up, and the jet stream is actually pulling it. There's an equatorial jet stream we don't think of. There's one that runs in the U.S. that we're familiar with. But there's an equatorial jet stream that runs around the center. It's the one that's crossing up now. This should be the warmth that should be in southern Mexico, Central America, maybe Cuba, but not us. And it's drifting so high up that Mexico City, like I said, they were predicting 103 in Mexico City this week. Zombie Nation, doing some camping tonight. It's about 30. Good sleeping weather. I like it whenever you get to sleep in a cool camp like that, where you can just get that all snuggled up and get right and you get good and warm. You just sleep all the way through. That's fantastic. I'd rather sleep in a winter camp than any other time, to be honest. Randy Robbins, hello there. Gray Wolf, yeah, chestnuts. I ate some of them when I was young. We even ate hickory nuts. Black walnuts, hickory nuts, chestnuts, things like that. We ate all of them, and you'd roast them, roast peanuts. I live down here where they grow peanuts. It's everywhere, and so everybody had just bags of peanuts sitting in a pantry or jars of peanuts that you'd roast peanuts, all kinds of nuts, cashews, stuff like that. You'd see them show up in the grocery stores around Christmas for holiday bacon. But it wasn't a common thing for me to see, or certainly nothing I could afford when I was young. Jerry, when can we expect emails to pay for the gear? Those will be coming out tomorrow. I'm going to give a couple days for the thing to fill up, and then I start sending out all the emails. So it is coming. Nobody's got anything, so nothing sold out or nothing. So I will be sending out those emails either late tonight or early tomorrow. In fact, I already queued it up about an hour ago. So, Andy Knight, you did good. You got you some percussion caps. I got lucky and scored some new. They've changed the 10. I think that's kind of cool. It's kind of rebaited a little bit. It's easier to grip, so you can open and close it easier. I thought that was cool. And I got some number 11s. In about 1,000 of them myself just for that. Gear Boy, Blackie, you seem to understand how the weather works so well. Where did you learn it all, and where can we? Okay, the easiest thing to do is understand that where you're at in the country, start looking at your weather patterns and noticing where it comes in, where it goes out. Okay, because it will repeat a lot. When you look at the big picture, like here in the U.S., you will see the flow come in through Washington State, Oregon. It doesn't usually come in any lower than that because them mountains block it. So when that circulatory current comes off of the Pacific, it's cold because it's been up around Alaska and all like that, and it dips down and it comes into the United States there, and it goes across Idaho, over the Rockies, and then it drops down in the Great Plains, and then it comes down the Great Plains, and it hits Texas, and it hits the Gulf of Mexico, and ain't moving that, and it slides sideways, and then it starts going back up. If you'll plot a line between Montgomery, Alabama, and Mobile and Montgomery, Alabama, and continue that line up, that's the path of all of your storms of New England and everything else. It's that path right there. So the storms come in, they get down, they grab moisture off the Gulf that re-energizes, and you get these storms going through the central and all up to the eastern U.S. You have to have the air coming in from the west and the moisture coming up from the Gulf. Once you see that and you start seeing these patterns, it gets pretty predictable. You can see what's going. So you just notice where it's coming from in your area. And so when you start seeing, okay, we got another front coming in on this, that means that these 3 days it's going to rain because it's going to roll over us. Do we have moisture coming up? Yes, then it's going to rain. We're not going to have moisture coming up, and it's just going to be wind and it's going to go by. And you'll really start seeing it. Now, I worked for a military contractor and et cetera called Enterprise Electronics that made weather and military radars. And I spent 5 years working with them about people who build radar. And the Neil Braswell, who was one of the guys that held patents on Doppler radar. He was one of the ones that had been in the Navy in World War II, and they'd kind of invented Doppler radar. He's the one that showed me a lot of stuff, because we were setting up these radar units and things like that. So that's where I got a lot of mine. But if you just simply start observing the pattern, it's amazing what you'll start seeing in patterns that repeat over and over again, and give you a good idea of what to look for. Chris, good evening. Took the wife to try some pistols. She's learning fast. Good to hear that. Thank you for the black powder videos. Glad to do it. Hopefully I'll get to do more of them once things change. Yep. Fuel the fires. A man can work with 3 inches. True. Tennessee Smoky, I hear you. Yeah, the thing about it is, if you ever do roll it or do something like that, just get, what I have done myself is I've just got a file. Forget stones, just get a file and get on one side and do 10 strokes, and go to the other side and do 10 strokes, and keep alternating 10 strokes, 10 strokes, 10 strokes, until you get a total of 100 strokes all together. That's 10 sets. And you will have reestablished a new bevel to start sharpening with. So if it's sharpened too much on one side or whatever, by that, usually by 100 strokes, 10, 10, 10 alternating, it will be beveled enough where you can start building again. And that's the way I've done it anyway. Archangel, I hear you. Tim Lacey, good evening. Dance with Empties. Yeah, that new Arctic blast. Well, we had the snow that oscillates around. Now another one, but this time it's not coming down as deep. Again, all this moisture is pushed up, so it's going to do the Midwest and etc. But that Arctic blast is going to roll over the northern tier, and so it's going to be pure Arctic cold up that high, just like we had before. I predict another cold snap. We ain't done. I'm figuring probably the end of the month it's going to roll down on us again, if not the 1st of March, and we'll have a good cold, and that should be it. Then we should be done with it down here. Charles Mark, now you saw some folding utensils at Walmart for about 10, wasn't sure about the quality of them. They can be adequate, you know. Simple eating utensils don't really have to be that great robust. If you're wanting to cook with it, where you're going to have to stir a big pot or dig deep, yeah, you got to have something more sturdy. And like I showed in one of my videos, that little bitty REI or whatever, little bitty spatula, and man, you can bend the thing like that. You could try to pick up a postage stamp and it's going to bend. It just looks good, but it was useless. So you need some backbone in it. Do you ever make paper cartridges to facilitate faster loading for black powder shotgun? Yes, I have done that quite a bit, but I have found that actually how it works better to me is I make up pre-made up powder charges. And what I think I've demonstrated this in the shotgun video. There's little bitty glass bottles you get at the craft store. It's got the screw-on lid. I take 2 of them. I put a little spacer between them like a piece of cardboard, and I wrap it with masking tape or electrical tape, and I leave a gap at the bottom so I can see, you know, like 1/8 of an inch or so at the bottom. And that way I can tell which one's shot and which one's powder. And I put my powder into one side and my pre-measured shot into the other side. And so that way I pull it out, I unscrew, I pour the powder. I then, in the pocket of my shooting bag, I've got a shallow pocket that I have pre-cut wads sitting there. And so I just scoop out 3 of those pre-cut wads that are made from, I take like Coca-Cola case, 24 count case boxes or something, and I punch them out. I put 3 of those down, then I screw and dump the shot, and I put one or two down on top of it, and that's a standard load to go. That'll handle rabbit, squirrel, small game, etc. Now for bird, I may want to tailor that a little bit. I may want to put an actual cushion wad in or something. But you can do anything a modern shotgun can do, you can do with a muzzle-loading shotgun. The modern gun is equal to the black powder. It isn't that it's greatly superior. It's much easier to load. But as far as power and ability, the muzzle-loading shotgun and the modern shotgun is 1-to-1 identical in performance. It's the same pellets moving at the same speed. And it's just ease of loading is those nice shells. And so I just take those two screw top bottles and utilize them to divide it out and just put a little tape around it, and it works good. And I if you look in my playlist, there is one on black powder shotgun where I demonstrate it. All right, let me see. Catch back up. Can you recommend a good sight rings for 308? I'm so far out of the what's new and current, I really can't. The last thing I bought was a couple of years ago. I really can't speak to that, to be honest with you. I really can't. And the companies I dealt with many, many years ago was many, many years ago. I don't know what the quality is today. So. Dale Morris, thank you. Sir Malcolm, you made it. That's what's important. Tennessee Smoky, more classic #1 carbon. It's a mess now. Well, if it's already a mess, you can't make it any worse, can you? Grab a file and start reworking it. Fail. First attempt in learning. You know. Consider this a challenge to see what I can do with it. You know. Tim, Blackie, can tell us what city and state the rucksacks are made in, and does the maker make other products? They are made in West Virginia, United States, and I'm not sure the exact city. I think it's I want to say it's Charleston, Carlton, something like that is the name of it. And it's Possum Pouch is who actually makes them. And so you can look at, he carries other products that he makes as well. So you might want to check there. Texas Joe, thank you very much. Oh, good. Charles Martin, you found some of the patches there. Yes. David Burkhalter, hello to Orlando. Patriot Preacher, you're welcome. Donald Gideon, hello there. Simple Sojourner, hello to Wisconsin. Lamb and Doc, good evening. Welcome back. Kodak, doing well. Hope you're doing well. Tim Pierce, question. Do you plan on doing any sewing videos with a Chinese sewing machine to make something fairly simple, maybe a pouch with a drawstring? Yeah, I can do that. In fact, I was thinking about making a pouch for a piece of gear. And so I'll add that to the list. Get the list out. Okay. Videos. So, simple pouch. Okay. We'll add that to the list. I'll use a Chinese thing to show you how simple it works. Oh, I understand Dance was empty. Yeah. He said you can see snow and as early as mid-May. You have to be special to live up here. At least we can usually see what wildlife wants to kill us on top of the weather. True. You know, I have had many friends over the years that lived in the far north and have come down here for military or for whatever reason. And my sister lived in Alaska for a number of years, in Anchorage. And I've had other people that's been way up yonder back in the old days whenever they're Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. He was part of the truckers that were assembling and creating Prudhoe Bay for the thing. And I've known him. And the funny one to me was a big burly guy that he showed up down here in January one year. And he was rough and tough, and he was from way back in the nowhere, Alaska. And he'd never been to the lower 48. He was born in Alaska, born on a river in the middle of nowhere. A guide service was his dad. So, this was his getting out in the world. And then whenever May got here, we thought he was going to die because the heat was killing him. And how do y'all people live down here? You got to be pretty strong to live down here in 118-degree heat index, just like y'all got to be real strong to live up there in that cold index. Same idea, just flip the script. So, Bob, hello to Southwest Ohio. Richard Hayes, hello there. Yeah, Gray Wolf, sewing is becoming a lost skill. And it's something that I've been approached by groups, and I've taught groups about homesteading and what skills should I know for homesteading. One of the things is learn how to sew by hand and by machine, because you're going to be making your own stuff. If you're worried about there ain't going to be food and there ain't going to be gas and there ain't going to be this, trust me, nobody's going to fall out of heaven with a new set of Levi's for you. And clothes wear out when you're working hard trying to make a living. And so you need to be able to recycle what you got into other projects and be able to use what you got and make what you need. Because, everybody thinks I'll be wearing buckskin. I have worn buckskin for weeks at a time in living history, where when you're pulling it off, it's become a second layer on you. After you sweated and had it wet and it's dried on you and everything else, it's like skinning you to pull that thing off of you. So trust me, you'll want a pair of blue jeans. Briar Smoke, Blackie, have you seen those new Grail slings that carry your Grail and some gear over your shoulder? Been thinking about trying one. Wonder what your thoughts on it. I have carried my Grail over my shoulder one way or the other since the beginning. My Sparrowhawk pouch will roll down and become a carrier. So you can put a Grail or something in it, and then you just hook a strap to it and hang it around you if you want to do that. Or the Grail's got that big opening on it. I have put a carabiner to that and then hooked to the strap of my haversack, or hooked a separate strap to it that way and carried it. And it's a handy way to do it. That way you can bring it up and drink as a canteen and put it back down. And it's great for its filtration, but its capacity is not a full quart. So you're going to run dry fairly easy. It's not as full as a regular quart. So I always prefer to carry a canteen and that, so that I can keep the two of them running in the heat of the summer. But yeah, I prefer to carry it on a strap. Blackie, do folks bring campers and RVs to your gathering? Sure, come on. People have hammocks, tents, RVs, all of them are welcome. We got room. Come on. JP, well, thank you very much. Yeah, Gray Wolf. Land in Mississippi in July. You got an education, didn't you? Matt Flaherty, what? Okay, back at it. Up. There we go. Okay. What should we bring and what facilities are available at the gathering in April? Bring your own drinking water. We have the lake if you want filter water, but there is no water spigot or anything down there. There are trash cans provided. Just bring your own trash bag so you can dump trash. Firewood I will provide for the camp. The state will have 2 porta potties that they will have pumped sitting there ready to go. That's our outhouse ability. Other than that, there are picnic tables at multiple of the campsites going across that, but not everywhere. So I think there's like 10 of them in the camp. And there's multiple places you can camp. There's room for RVs. There's plenty of room for tents. There's plenty of room for hammocks. So just bring what you need for you to camp as far as your food and etc. Bring your own potable water, and we are just about 20 minutes away from a little gas station that's got its own, you can buy groceries or whatever, you know what I mean? It's a little convenience store. And you are less than 30 minutes away from about 20 minutes away from a full grocery store in a small town called Sampson, Alabama, where you can get groceries, beer, etc. So all of the above. So that's basically what you're going to need. Just bring your gear that you need to camp with. Okay. Number one big bear. I beat out Hooper. Awesome. Jimmy Dunlap. Greetings to North Carolina. Israel, do you have any, Blackie, do you have any videos on flintlocks? I don't think I do. I think I did do one or two several years ago about my rifle, shooting a flintlock. But it might have been 10 years ago. The problem with how many videos I've done is like I think last time I checked, it was like 1,700 or right there at it. And I remember most of them. And I'll go, yeah, I did a video on that. And what I don't realize, I did that video 15 years ago. So, if the powers that be and the things that I'm seeing happen, like I said, Google owns YouTube, and Google lost that court case saying they weren't a monopoly. And the court is deciding now whether or not they're going to break it all up like they did Bell Telephone. And so they got to divest themselves of YouTube and everything else, and they become a separate company again, and etc. And more fair to us providers, and not so down on the Second Amendment stuff. I would be doing a whole lot more firearm stuff about my black powder and shotguns and rifles. And I know as much about guns as I know about bushcraft. I was a gunsmith. I built rifles. I shot, built ARs, and all of that, and shotgun work and etc. And I'd love to be able to do a little side thing, another channel or a side channel just dealing with guns and stuff and sharing what I know about guns. But the only thing I thought I could do and not get tagged for it was my percussion stuff. And for a while that was true. But it's got to where if I put anything up like that, half your money is gone next month. It's like you don't get no money. Your views are the same. Everything's up. Everything's in the green. So why is your money half? But I'm hoping that with the current changes I'm seeing happening so rapid fire, that may disappear. And when it does, I will do videos on flintlocks and percussion guns and etc. Just for share my knowledge of them things. Jerry, yeah, sewing is in a weird spot because it's becoming lost among normal people and groups, but like cosplayers are keeping the skills alive. Yeah, because they're having to make it from scratch. Living history reenactors and stuff, kind of like the cosplayers, have to make up their own in a lot of time because it's just simply not available. Or they'll sell you a pattern, but nobody makes it. Or if they do, it's such a ridiculous price, and so they have to do it. Jerry, what I've got, if you want to look up Chinese shoe stitcher, and it's going to come up, and it's a sewing machine with a great big crank, round crank over here that you turn. It's a copy of a 1800 British type sewing machine that at some point in history they gave the rights to China to reproduce. Okay, and so they work well. The little bitty three-legged stand that comes with it's garbage. Don't even look at it. I just took the base of mine and sat it down onto a 2x6 and bolted it to that. That way I can put it up on the edge of a table and put 2 padded C-clamps and anchor it to the edge of a table and be able to sew whatever. It will sew leather. It'll sew canvas. It'll sew anything. And if you got any basic mechanical knowledge, you can keep this thing running. It's super simple. And there's a lot of good tutorials out there of people like me that's got one, and then they've gone back and done videos to show you how, hey, for me, I did this or whatever. And I really like mine. And I've done all of my prototypes. I did the prototype for my Red Hawk, for my Black Hawk, for my Sparrow Hawk, the Wee Hawk. All of my prototypes I did on that little Chinese stitcher. I just buy a canvas tart from Harbor Freight for kind of stiff material, like my wax canvas, so it does a good substitution and not expensive. And I make my patterns, cut it out, and sit there and stitch it together and adjust my patterns till I get what I want, and then I hand that off for manufacturing. And I've been very happy with mine. It's sitting on a shelf right over there. But I know I've done a video talking about it. I think I called it the Chinese Stitcher. But I paid like $85 for mine, brand new, and it works well. Okay. William Moffett, good evening. Tim Lacey, yeah, like you pulling buckskin off in summer's like taking 3 layers of hide off. It is. Once it's good and sweaty on you, you ain't getting it off. Philip, hello to Austria. Okay, made it jump. Let me catch back up where I was. Trooper 2221, hello there. Richard Hayes, yeah, Mike Bellevue's a cool guy. Jerry, thank you very much. I try to share all I can. Thomas, I prefer sewing with 2 needles, making the hole. Yeah, the running stitches. Yeah, not saddle stitch. Yes. Cool, Jimmy Dunlap. Yeah, talked to Dakota yesterday on his tarp, and would love to see a video on the German Alpine pack, great pack, and the Red Hawk haversack, good combination. Yeah, be a good summer spring camp out. I've got to do. I was asked to redo. Taking the tarp and I make it where it's an enclosed tent, where it's half a pyramid in the back, so you can sit up in it, and the front turns into 2 flaps that close together. And I did it in a video like 5 or 6 years ago, and I need to do another video on it. I had somebody ask me to go and do that again to kind of refresh it out, and I'll have to do that. And I've got the One Wind stealth tent that now that it's, while it's still cool, I need to get out there and do a video, an overnight with it. Excuse me, of it, because it's a nice little bivy type tent that's tall enough to sit up in. Rewild Outdoors just did a video on that, and I got another tent from One Wind. It's a larger tent that I've just got it in literally today. I'm gonna have to set it up and figure out all the perks and etc. So that will be coming soon. So there's going to be several tent videos popping up here pretty soon. Two Guys in the Ozarks, good evening. Yeah, love the Chinese shoe stitcher. Already made a canvas haversack. Now moving on to the Kondura. It'll sew it. You know, and that's one of the skills of it, is being able to make your own gear. A class I would like to do, but it had to be a in-person class, and it had to be a weekend type class, would be to get together and talk about how to visualize and make patterns. So you can look at something you like and how you can reverse engineer and make a copy of it for yourself. I'm very, very good at that, but I want to do a class. I'd love to do a class on that, on teaching people how to do it, how they can visualize it and turn it into a pattern that they can make. There was a guy that in living history that made these shooting bags that had a lot of pockets in them. And in fact, hold on one second. Okay, this is one of my old bags that's made out of elk. I use it for a shotgun bag right now. But you see how it has internal pouches in it? And then remember I talked about a little while ago about the two glass tubes that you can see on the bottom, see what's in them for loading a shotgun. I use this one for a shotgun. It's got a pouch here. This bag, all of it, I did a pattern just by taking a glance at 3 other bags, and then I took the parts of the 3 bags I liked and created this bag. And it has adjustable strap and etc. Lined, all of it. All it took was just a basic knowledge of how to put things together. You have to have a front, a back. You want the flap to be a separate piece or part of the back that folds over. If you do that, it's going to make this type of problem. If you make them separate, you can actually make them tight where the bag flap wants to stay closed better. I wanted it to be closed better. And so therefore, and so you work out all the little pieces. And me and Don Davis were at the Eastern Rendezvous in New York State. And that guy that made $350 bags. And Don had lusted for one of those bags for probably 2 years. And so he all the way up there, us driving from Huntsville, Alabama, all the way to New York, because it was on the Seneca Indian Reservation in New York State. We were like 60 miles from Niagara, I think. And all he talked about was getting one of them bags. He wanted one of them bags. So we got up there. We found the guy. The first day we got there, it's getting close to dark. And we, when I say found him, you understand there were 50,000 people at this event. The biggest rendezvous I ever went to was the Eastern Rendezvous, and there were 50-something thousand people registered in camping. So it was a city. And we went around and found the guy. And then when we found him, he was so arrogant, he wouldn't even pull a tub out and let Don look. He said, when I bring out my stuff, people tend to congregate, and I just don't want to mess with it today. And it pissed me off. Don's willing to pay $300-something for a bag, and you don't even want to waste your time opening up a tub to let him look and pay you. And so, because of that, we found somebody in camp that had one of those bags. And I looked at it and made a pattern. And me and Don made a copy of that bag during that week. We were camping out a week. So we cut it out on a camp table with knives, didn't have scissors or nothing, our primitive sewing kits. And I sewed. That's when I sewed this bag as well. And we made up that bag. And later in the event, on the last day, we were standing in line, and he came up and was standing behind Don, saw the bag we just made, and thought it was one of his. So, learning how to make patterns is a skill unto its own. Okay, let me catch back up here. Sir Malcolm, I'll be glad to shake your hand anytime. Thoughts on the MS sleeping bags made in Hayville, Alabama? I haven't seen them yet. I can't give you an honest opinion. I don't ever want to do that on something I haven't played with yet. Does anyone have a Hercules height tent? Not aware of it. Yeah, Charles Martin would love to do a Alice type backpack, but bigger and doesn't stick out as far as the Alice pack does. Yeah. Dance with Empties. Blackie, you have ever thought of a belt worn possibles bag, mini haversack? Use one for years. Yes. In fact, in my rendezvousing days, I used a belt pouch about that big as a duty bag, almost like a sporran, like you put in front of a kilt that I wore on my belt, because we had a duty bag, which was a haversack that was made out of blanket material, and we just wore it like a badge. Most of the time I didn't even hardly carry anything in it, but that little sack was everything of mine in it, because we would hand off those blanket bags to whoever was on duty. If you were off duty, you didn't wear your bag, because if you saw us wearing red shirts and kilts and those bags, that meant he's on duty, and if you got a problem, he'll take care of it. So Jerry Donnell, you're doing fine. Thank you, Watchbird Billy. Running Owl. No. The Smith & Wesson is the one I got long before them days. Philip, your opinion on solid fuel tabs for the outdoors. They work well. They're easy to count and know how many meals you can get out of them, especially if you get the large ones that you can bust in half. So this one I just need to warm something up versus actually boiling water. So you can see exactly how many meals and etc. you can do. Also, as a fire starter, excellent, works very well. And I pointed out that those zips from Walmart go where in the hardware go where they got the firewood, and they've got boxes of them. I recently did that video with those cubes. That'll boil water. I mean, they burn for like 10 minutes, and they burn hot, and so they would be a really good something to put up underneath a cup to heat up or whatever. So solid tabs do have a place, especially if you guys are out west and you're living in the tinder boxes of California and Arizona and stuff. You don't have the time, nor do you really need a big fire, because it's just too big a fire risk. You need something that's really focused, really right here, that I can kick out 5 or 6 feet and just stand there and watch it like a hawk. And those burning tabs don't give off sparks like raw wood would. You might have a cinder come up. They won't come off of those burning cubes of chemical. And so that does have a definite advantage. Doesn't give away a fire so easy. Kodak, thoughts on a watch coat, from Tent Smith. It does good as a raincoat, but it'll also sweat you to death in our South, because if it's raining and it's anything but winter, it's just like a poncho. It's just, I would rather have a poncho. I have had a watch coat by the company before Tent Smiths that was making them. I had it back in the 80s as far as a living history. We called it a fish skin. And you'd sweat as much under it in our humidity than you would out of it. And so that's the problem of it. You're going to get wet. Whether you're going to be wet with sweat or wet with rain is the question. Okay, David Burkhalter. When you do char for flint and steel, do you use cotton cloth or punk wood? Both. I prefer punk, to be honest, plain old char as opposed to char cloth. Char cloth works well, especially when you're teaching somebody. But char cloth, I like to do like a 3-inch square. And I'll take old blue jeans or something and cut them up and char them in a tin. A charring tin that I just put punk wood in out of the fire that I've seen that's left that's charred, and then fill that thing up. And then you throw sparks into the whole tin full of it. You don't pull a piece out. You just rain fire on all of them, something will catch. And when it catches, you take that piece out, put it in your tinder, and close your char tin and let it smother anything else. And then you blow that in the fire. So it's really two different mindsets. One, I have char cloth I have to take out, wrap around, or hold and hit and try to get it to hit, versus aim for the whole tin and just shower sparks on it and get something to catch. And flint and steel, for living history, I did it for 25 years. It was my favorite way to do that type of stuff. But I'm going to tell you, a ferro rod throws a whole lot harder spark. And so open up your char tin, take a ferro rod and go, and you got fire. Something's going to catch, because it's a whole lot hotter. Yeah, briar smoke out there with y'all. A dirty thought will start a fire in California. Yeah. Richard Hayes. Y'all excuse me, I'm just choking up. Going to Goodwill a lot of times. And if you'll start talking to people at Goodwills and stuff like that and say, look, I'm looking for torn up denim. If you get in a pair of pants that's too shredded up or whatever, don't throw it away, throw it in a pile, and I'll come by and get it. And I'd get all the denim I wanted that was just about half wore out, where it had been washed and washed and washed. It's 100% cotton. And I'd cut that up. And that's thicker. It holds a spark better and glows hotter because it's thicker material to begin with. Tim Pierce, glad you like it. Yeah, David, the cotton rope to make the cotton wick burn, it works well. You saw that a lot in living history, where you could take a cotton rope, char it, and then you pushed it up out of the tube, struck, blowing, and go glowing like the head of a cigar. Put that in your tinder bundle and blow until it caught your bird's nest. And then you could just pull the cord back down in the tube and smother it and use it like a lighter. In fact, that's what it was in the historic time. People used it as a lighter in order to light pipes and cigars and stuff like that. Is there a best ferro rod that I should look for? I have used quite a few different ones. If it's really soft, it throws bigger sparks because more material will get hot and be ejected. If it's hard, it lasts longer, but it throws weaker sparks, and that's the only way I can tell you. And so I have had good and bad luck. I have had stuff off Amazon that I had one that was thick as my pinky, and you just couldn't get it to throw a spark worth nothing. It was way too hard, and I'd get so frustrated with it, and you just get chatter marks on it, and you just couldn't get a spark. And then I had one that I thought would be cheap. In fact, it came as part of a kit, and I thought, this is it, yeah. And man, you could hit it and throw it, and it looked like 4th of July coming off of it. And that became my primary for a long time. So I really can't say a company name. I think they're all coming from roughly the same idea. But you just got to buy one, get one. Now, you go buy from some place like SRO or something that's making their reputation on word of mouth, there'd probably be a better chance to get a good one as opposed to going to Amazon, because they're just selling you a rod like a clothesline. They don't care. That might be something to do. Or when you go to one of the events, look around and see if somebody's got them there. Patriot American. Blackie, have you ever tried flint knapping? Yes. Back in the 80s, I played around with it with a friend of mine that knew what he was doing. And I got to where I could make a usable blade and a couple of usable arrowheads and stuff, but I have not played with that in 20 years now. But I did at one time play with flint knapping as part of my historical persona I was working with. So. JP, he was. North Carolina, Piedmont. Good evening. Yep, using deer antlers to be your strikers for napping. Richard Hayes. Yep, like I said, the ones that Dave and them are selling. That if I was going to blind tee to go somewhere, go there, because they've made their reputation on word of mouth, and Dave is taking the time, because that would hurt, if he had junky ones. So he's taking the time to order what he considered the best. And they're seeing real, because I know a lot of his students are getting his stuff from him. And so therefore, if it was crap, he'd know it quick. So it'd be the safe bet to do something like that. Turtle D, cool. You shooting them shooting clays with a muzzleloading shotgun? Jerry Donnell, glad to do it. Hope you and the dog have a good walk. Philip, are you still active in reenactment? I have not in a lot of years. So the group that I was part of kind of aged out. But from 1984 until about 2008, 2009, something like that. Well, more like 2010. I think the last big rendezvous I went to was 2011. And so I was active in it. And the Alabama Red Wolves, Grouch was the head of the Alabama Red Wolves. And the pre-1840 Historical Society was one thing we called ourselves. And we were either putting on the Southeastern Rendezvous, or we were working at the Southeastern Rendezvous as dog soldiers from 1990 to 2000. So that 10 years. And I was, like I said, for years before that, I was in the events, but I was just not running it. And then after that, and I just got to where I wasn't, everybody had got old and nobody wanted to go camp anymore. And, I'd been there at a time when we were serious about the historic part of it and persona and working your gear and etc. And toward the end, everybody was getting old and people were using hibachis and cans of beanie weenies. And it just kind of got sad to me, to be honest. And I didn't want to see it die because it meant so much to me. And so I kind of quietly kind of bowed out. And I worked with Boy Scouts for years along that time as well. And I kind of bowed out because of the way the politics got involved in that as well. Jonathan Frisbee, Fearless Journey. Good evening, brother. Good to see you. Tim Pierce, dehydrator preserving food, meat, or vegetables? Maybe. Yes, all of the above. You can dry them, you can pickle them, you can can them. And each one has advantages. If you're doing it for short term pickling, like certain vegetables like squash and stuff like that, you can pickle real quick and gonna eat it in the next 2 months, 3 months. Canning, I want this to roll over to the off season. I can get fresh, but I want the canned stuff when I can't get fresh. So if I can't take a given vegetable from February through May, that's when I want to use my canned stuff, see? So I'm constantly rotating through and keeping the biggest bounty on the table at any given time. So when it's cheap and available, you can it, you freeze it, you bag it, you whatever. And whenever it gets expensive, that's when you eat out of your larder. What do you think of 1095 for knife making? It makes a decent knife. Yes, there are more voodoo steels and stuff like that, but it's a good, decent knife. It'll hold an edge fairly well. It will be a good edge. Yes, there are steels that will produce a finer edge. Yes, there are steels that are harder and better, and etc. But that does not mean that 1095 does not make a good usable blade, and it will. And especially when you're learning to make knives, I don't recommend you spend a lot of money. And like I said, you want to learn how to make knives. You want to start practicing and cutting from a bar stock into. Go buy a cheap machete. You know, just buy a cheap machete, like one of them Walmart $5 machetes that's garbage. It's not going to make a good blade. But you'll learn how to cut the stock out. You'll learn how to grind. You'll learn how to do all of that. And then buy a better machete, and you can get 3 or 4 blades out of a machete, because it's spring steel. And when you get to where you make a nice one, a good one out of that, then go buy like 1095 bar stock and start making blades. Look up on Amazon. It's called, I want to say it's the $40 knife shop. Hold on, see if I can do this without screwing up the universe. Hop off for just a second. It was a book, and it was a really good one. I want to say it was it $40 or $50? $50 knife shop book. Yes, the $50 knife shop book. They're like $17 on Amazon. That is a great book to give you a really good working knowledge on how to make knives. And anybody that's doing prepping, I recommend that book to go into their library, because he tells you how to make a grinder out of a motor out of an old washing machine, how to find and recycle materials around your place into usable knives. I mean, in the old days, they just take saw blades and stuff, and you can still do that, and make decent kitchen knives and etc. But it shows you how to do it from a grassroots. This guy makes custom knives, but he's turning around and being somebody like me that's showing you how to get started and understand the concept that with these skills, you can then grow to bigger things. And so it's called a $50 knife shop. But people want to make knives, I really recommend you start with that. Washburn Billy, what about these dudes making knives out of lawnmower blades? They make a really good knife, but it's thick stock, and you got to grind it down and don't take out the heat temper. That requires the $50 knife book talks about using lawnmower blades and saw blades specifically. So it'll teach you that, but you can do it. You just got to thin the metal down to the size and shape you want without overheating it and taking the temper out of it. So, but that's a 1075, 1085, something like that. And it's very forgiving, because think how springy and tough a lawnmower blade you got to be. So when it hits that rock, it don't shatter. Think about the speed and how many times it's going to whap. And it's only supported in the middle. It's just free floating besides that. So yeah, you can make a pretty nice cleaver and everything else out of one. Sir Malcolm, good. It's never too late to just start. Garen, hello to North Central Florida. Mitchell, hello to San Diego. Right, Preacher Man, you start with a cheaper knife and reshape it into something else. Saw blades, hand saws. Go look around your thrift shops and stuff and find that wore out, broken hand saw that's no good for a hand saw. That steel can easily be turned into a pretty nice blade. We used to take hacksaw blades that had broke and fit a little handle to it and re-edge it and turn it into like a kitchen paring knife and stuff. Yeah, Jonathan Frisbee. Yep, too late for me to start making them. I just buy WC. That's it. Buy the best, forget the rest. It'll kill. Hello, Blackie. Thank you for the grass video. It's my pleasure. He enjoyed doing it. Hopefully, I'll get to do another one here pretty soon. Scott, Bear mentioned a short, low to the ground camp cot when y'all were together. Do you know which one he's talking about? It's not difficult. When you go look at the camping section, there's one that folds up kind of square like this. That's the low cot. The one that just folds in half, that's the high cot. But the one that folds like 3 times, it's about that thick by that by that. I mean, it like an accordion, and it folds up a couple of ways. That's the low cot. The legs are only like that high. So it gets you just a couple inches off the ground, just enough so you can get up and down off of it, and guarantee you're not in the mud. Oh yeah, and Sir Malcolm, think about how many old kitchen knives, old butcher knives. Start looking around, and you'll find old hickory butcher knives for a couple of bucks each at thrift stores. Regrind them and turn it into a design you want. A lot of guys have took them and reshaped them into bushcraft knives. Two guys nose arcs. Blackie, can you make a striker for flint and steel out of a lawnmower blade? Yes, you can make a solid piece of metal to hit and do just a hunk of it. A broken file works really well for that as well. You don't have to do that big heavy lawnmower blade. Just take a standard old Nicholson file and snap off a piece, and use it as a striker, and it does a good job as well. Correct, Charles Martin, but there's the satisfaction of making your own things and being self-sufficient. Exactly. Plus the fact it makes you appreciate something more, because once you put all that time and effort into a knife, you're more willing to pay for a really good knife that you ain't got to do all that effort, but you'll respect that knife because you know what went into making it. I'm a big fan of that. Dance with Empties. What Smith & Wesson revolvers do you currently own, and what's your favorite model? I own a Model 10, and I think I own one of the small, my wife's got a small 38, one of them, I'm not sure the exact number. What is my favorite of all of them? The 1917 Smith and 45 ACP. I had one for years. Grouch has got it. He got it off of me in a moment of weakness. But he has promised me that I will inherit that gun back. But it was the 1917 45 ACP with full moon clips, my all-time favorite Smith. And yes, I've had the 44 Magnum and the 45 Colt, the 25, the 17, 19s, all of them. And but the 10, man, I've done so much with a 10. I took early days 38 10s were police trade-in guns. You'd get them for like $120 each. I've seen them as low as $75 each. And I would take them and accurize them and use them for hunting small game with hand loads and stuff like that. And horse trade them and etc. So the 10 was one of I've owned more 10s than anything else, I believe. Charles Martin, that's it. You get inspired by an idea. You take a design, I like that, but I'd like to. That's how you get new designs. Play with them. Come up with what you want. No, Grey Wolf, you're thinking about the triple lock. Mine, the 1917, it was a triple lock. It literally had an extra detent up on the crane to lock it. And but not all of the 1917s had it. It was only in the very first month of the run they did it, and they cut it out and just left it out because it streamlined and sped up production. See, the only reason that they did that was Colt and Smith were making the 17s because the U.S. Army didn't have enough 1911s, and they needed 45 ACPs now because we were going into the war. So they looked at Smith & Wesson and said, you already got a big revolver in 45, chamber it in 45 ACP, and will issue it. And so that's the reason they went to doing it. And they didn't have full moon clips. They had half clips that took 3 rounds that they were issued. Mine, the moderns, you just get full all the way around. So you drop in 6. And so that was great. I mean, you eject and there's all 6 of you empties still together. Oh, it was great. I loved hand loading and shooting it. So, but that's what the triple lock was. It had an extra latch up on it. It'll kill. Good night. Andrew, hello there. 11 inches of snow in Sterling, Virginia. Next week, time to take care of some gear. Hope y'all do well. Patriot American. Blackie, what's your 22 pistol favorites? Ruger Single 6, old model, 3 screw. By far, that was my favorite single 22 revolver. Now, next to that, what you have today is the Heritage Rough Rider, which is a modern remake of a gun we had back when I was a boy called a FIE Buffalo Scout. I mean, it's the same gun. And, but it was cheap, reliable, shot cartridges well, and you can get it with dual cylinders. And with 22 Magnum is nothing to sneeze at up close, even out of that little gun. If I was going to carry a 22 for defense, it'd be that gun with a 22 Magnum in it, because 22 Magnum up close is nasty. It outperforms what you think it will do. And I have firsthand experience with that. But as far as an automatic, Colt Woodsman. When I was 13, I worked as a cowboy for a ranch in North Florida for the whole summer, riding fence on a horse, doing like they did in the Old West, riding fence and repairing fences. That was my job. And I carried a 45 Colt Single Action Army, and I had a 30-30 Winchester. And we had a bounty on dogs because they had rabies going through that part of the country real bad. And everybody had been told, you put an orange collar on your dog. If you see a dog without an orange collar, shoot it. They paid like a $30 bounty for a dead dog. They just cut the tail off of it and give you $30 because they were trying to stop rabies that was going through down there. And so I rode fence. And at the end of that summer, I was given a Colt Woodsman with the full-length barrel, the Target model. And how I wish I still had that gun. That was my favorite semi-automatic 22 was the Colt Woodsman. And I wish they would make a quality replica of that gun. I'd buy it. Gray Wolf, yeah, I agree that safety does distract, but that's what the Buffalo Scout had. You'd cock it and you'd take your thumb and flip the safety off, which now some guys would take that safety out, fill in that entire notch with JB Weld, because it was painted guns, it wasn't blued. And they would fill it in and then take a fingernail file and sand it so it was smooth. And they'd fill it all the way in and make it look a little bit more like a Colt. And then on the cylinder, they would cut the flutes deeper into the cylinder, make it look like an actual Colt. I did one of them years and years and years ago, did that little cosmetic to it to make it look more like a Colt. But a lot of work. It shoots well without it. Sir Mac, I'm sorry to hear y'all having bad weather. But that's this front going north. Y'all are getting the big stuff now. Yeah, Dances with Empties. The old Smiths that back when they were handmade and all pre-1980, outstanding guns. And then about 1980, things started getting a little dodgy, and by the early 90s, forget it. That's when Taurus was a better choice. So, oh, you got Caudell. You got a Colt Pre-Woodsman. Awesome. You know, that Browning buck mark looked a lot like the Colt Woodsman. But, you know, I just got a soft spot in my heart for a Colt Woodsman. I'm sorry. That's just my thing. Briar Smoke, I do not have that Ruger Wrangler. A friend of mine wanted it a lot worse than I wanted it. And I got a Heritage Rough Rider. It's what I got now in that one. But now I see now that the Ruger Wranglers, now they brought it out, the Super Wranglers got dual cylinders. You can get it in 22 Magnum. The problem I had with it is if that center base pin was not fully depressed, it jammed up. The transfer bar has to have that spring that's in the butt end of that base pin to push it up. Otherwise, if it does that, it hits the firing pin rather than lining up with the fire pin. It comes up. And with that spring pushing out, it does this and lines up. So the hammer hits it and it hits it. But without it, it does this and it hits and jams the gun. And I thought mine was defective and I kept playing around with it. I went back to the guy and showed him. He said, no, it's because that little plunger is not pushing out far enough. You got to make it stick in. So I had to deepen the notch trying to hold it tight in place. So just not that reliable to me. Yeah, Scott Carlson, that's the problem with wild dogs is they're not doing it for meat, they're doing it for the chase. And we had the same problem down here. I can remember when there was a bounty on stray dogs because people's hunting dogs for deer back when I was young. Deer hunting was a big thing with dogs down here. And a lot of times the dogs get lost or just run wild or never come back or whatever. And up through summer, you'd hear packs of dogs running through the woods. We didn't have coyotes and stuff back then. And it was only after we got rid of that did we start seeing coyotes down here. Blackie, do you want years in the Ruger Security 6 had the rounded frame? I know the one you're talking about. I don't know what exact years they were. But yeah, I remember the Security 6 with the rounded frame. They were good. Ruger guns are overbuilt. They are tough as nails. Complicated design usually, and you don't want to take it apart unless you really know what you're doing. But other than that, they were good guns. But they could be a headache to take apart and put back together. Rock Island does have two revolvers, a longer barrel and a shorter barrel that are decent. I've had the short barrel, got it from a wife, and it was accurate. We thought about getting the longer barrel just for one to play with, but I haven't got it yet. Yeah, JB, side by side. High Standard is nice too, but the Woodsman would just, man, I love the quality of it. Love the way it's shot. How'd you meet your wife, Blackie? I fell in a door at high school and wrapped around her feet. She was sitting in the front desk. I was coming up the hallway and went to passing out on my feet. I never did drugs or nothing. I don't know why, but I was probably early because I'm a hypoglycemic. I probably was having a sugar drop and didn't know it. And I'm coming up the hallway and the world just turned pale and I got tunnel vision and I was passing out and I'm sliding down the wall and I grabbed the doorknob and turned it and literally just fell full body, whop, and wrapped around something. Fetal position. I heard something. I looked up and way up yonder, like a 6-inch hole. There was this angel looking down at me going, "Can I help you?" That was my future wife. I wrapped around her feet. Sometime, whenever we're at camp, ask me and I'll tell you the whole story about that, but that takes a while. Yeah, Washburn Billy. It's not for everybody, but you got to admit it works. So capacity ain't great, accuracy is, and reliability is through the roof. So yeah, the side ejector on them, some of them got weak on those Woodsman and snapped. Oh yeah, briar smoke. That's the thing. We took a friend of mine he got a Ruger Mark One, and he's had it and shot it for 40 years. And a year or so ago, we ordered all new springs, took it completely apart down to every last pin, everything. We did a detail all the way back up the top and replaced every spring. It shoots like a brand new pistol. You know, it's still super, super accurate. So he never needed anything else. You know, I remember us at a place one time and somebody was mocking him because he carried it for a self-defense gun. And the guy said, yeah, but it won't stop a man, everything else. He said, really? Let's do a little demonstration. There was some poker being played. And so he took a poker chip and walked 15 yards out, 20 yards out, and stood it up on the back of the fence and drew and shot in one fluid motion and hit the poker chip. He said, yeah, but that's just a poker chip. He said, I can call which eye I'm aiming at to 25 yards. You know, I'm not shooting torsos. I'm aiming for face. And everybody kind of got quiet. I'm aiming for eyes. You know, he never had a problem shooting anything. I've seen him shoot squirrels. It's 60 feet up, and he's went pop and headshot squirrels. So, yeah, he makes me look bad with that 22. I put it that way. Yep, I know what you're talking about. Dancing with Empty, the coy dogs. Yep. Yeah, Richard. I chased her till she caught me. Yeah, Briar Smoke, the 3-inch barrel on the Ruger SP 101 is a really good gun. It shoots really well. They really, really do. But understand, there are certain loads, if you ever chronograph it, and I know this for a fact because I've told this story before. Ross Seifried, who had been the world handgunning champion, he run an elk ranch out in Idaho called the Windsong Ranch, and he wanted a coup de grace gun because people would pay him to come shoot elk, you know, and harvest elk. And he wanted, you know, you get a client, they shot him with some big, you know, 338, burn, blind, and deafen them. And then he'd walk up and it's not quite dead. He wanted a gun he could just go pop, pop, you know, and the 22 won't always go through the skull of an elk. It should, but he wanted a pocket gun. And so he took the GP 100 in a 3-inch. And he had this super hot hand load in 357, which he knew what it loaded, but he never chronographed it in that little bitty short Ruger. And so, as luck would have it, after a short time, there was an opportunity where this elk was down, but when they got up there, he wasn't dead. And so he pulled out, walked up, you know, 5 feet from him, aimed between the eyes, and he pulled the trigger and whapped. And the elk shook his head and started getting up, and he emptied all of them into a 50-cent size piece. And the elk finally got to his feet. And Ross grabbed the guy's rifle and put him down for the count. And when they did a post-mortem and he cut open the top, none of them had penetrated the skull. They were all just sitting against the skull. Well, he knew how hot that hollow point was. Well, he had loaded that in a 6-inch barrel gun. And the powder was meant for that 6-inch barrel, not a 3-inch barrel. And so when he went and chronographed that GP 100, the bullet was only to leave the barrel at 550 feet per second. That's reading a deck blast like a 16-inch battleship gun. But the powder that he was using was meant for the longer barrel, and that short barrel didn't work. So he had to hand load for a faster powder to work in that short barrel and get him the velocity. And then he got up to velocity. But that's the thing. They can shoot very accurately and everything, but some loads will outperform others because of the barrel and what it's loaded for. Most of your 38s and 37s are designed to 4 to 6-inch barrels and are loaded accordingly. That's one of the reasons a lot of them belly guns and those short 2-inchers normally don't print worth a flip, and they got these huge deck blasts because it's wrong powder. If you hand load, you can fix that. Yeah. Yeah, preacher man, wild hogs, I hear you. Oh yeah, running out. So, dude, I have seen guys pull the trigger on some stuff and it just be a burn blind and deafen them. And I go, what are you loading? Oh, I found it. Uh-huh. Did you chronograph it in this gun? You know, what was this loaded in? It was loaded from a brother's. He got an 8-inch barrel of it. Yeah, he loaded it for an 8-inch barrel, not a 2-inch barrel. And it's just, all you're doing is making a flash. The bullet don't get no speed because it hits the end of the barrel and that loses all the pressure. Whatever speed it's at when it hits the muzzle, that's as fast as it's ever going to get. And actually, the GP100 in a 9mm outperforms a lot of the 357s because of the powder. If you're using off-the-shelf ammo, the 9mm, the powder they use in it is designed to burn like now, because it's in that little bitty lock breech and it's unlocking, you know. And so it's got to have a faster burning rate powder than the 38 or 357. And the 38 and 357 have got that cylinder gap. They lose pressure. And so it's extra powder for that loss to equal what would be lost out the side. We don't lose that 9mm. And so what Ross did that comparison in Hand Loader magazine, that's where I found out that story. And he found that the GP100 in 9mm outperformed the 357 off the shelf ammo because of it. And he said it's because of what the load is. But he said, now once I hand load, I can easily outperform that 9 by hand loading for this barrel length. That's some of that stuff you got to learn once you start getting deep into the weeds and guns and stuff. Well, guys, that's an hour and a half. I think we're going to call it quits for the night. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I plan on being on next Thursday night. Thank you so much for all the questions and talk. I love all of it, and I always go back and reread, probably tomorrow. And thank y'all so much for tuning in and coming and spending some time with me. So, till next week, wishing y'all safe journeys. God bless. Be safe. And we'll talk to you later.